I never thought a single sentence, spoken casually over laughter and wine, could change the course of my marriage. But that night it did. It all started on what was supposed to be a normal Friday evening. My wife, Elena, had invited a few of her close friends over for dinner. I didn't mind. In fact, I'd spent most of the afternoon cleaning the house, grilling outside, and making sure everything was perfect. I wanted the night to go smoothly. Elena had been stressed lately, and I thought a relaxed evening with friends might help. There were 4 of us in total: Elena, me, her longtime friend Vanessa, and another friend who left early. By the time dessert came around, it was just the 3 of us sitting in the living room, wine glasses half empty, music playing softly in the background. Vanessa was loud, always had been. She was the kind of woman who dominated conversations, laughed at her own jokes, and had no filter. She and Elena had been friends since college, so I'd learned to tolerate her sharp tone. I didn't like her, but I respected Elena enough to stay polite. At least I tried. As the night went on, the conversation drifted from work to relationships. Vanessa leaned back on the couch, swirling her wine like she was in a movie. "You know," she said, smirking, "marriage really kills the spark." Elena laughed awkwardly. "Not always." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Please. Most married men can barely keep up." She looked straight at me. I smiled politely. "I think that depends on the man." She laughed. Loudly. Too loudly. "Oh my God," she said, placing a hand on her chest. "You're cute, but let's be real." Then she said it. "So, Elena," Vanessa continued, "how long does it last? A minute? Maybe 2 on a good day." She burst into laughter. I felt my face heat up instantly. My ears rang. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. I waited for Elena to shut it down. She didn't. Instead, she laughed nervously and said, "Vanessa, stop." But she didn't say no. Vanessa leaned forward, clearly enjoying herself. "What? I'm just joking. I mean, look at him. He gives off serious one-minute man energy." That's when the room went silent. The kind of silence that presses against your chest. I stood up slowly. My hands were clenched, but my voice was calm. "Too calm. That's inappropriate," I said, "and disrespectful." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Relax. If you're confident, jokes shouldn't bother you." Elena finally spoke up. "Vanessa, you should probably go." Vanessa scoffed, but stood, grabbing her bag. As she walked past me, she leaned in and whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "If the shoe fits." The door closed behind her. I stood there, staring at the wall, trying to process what had just happened. Elena started apologizing immediately. "She didn't mean it," she said. "You know how she is." I turned to her slowly. "Why didn't you stop her?" "I did," she replied quickly. "I told her to stop." After she said it, I shot back. "And you laughed first." That hit her. She crossed her arms. I was uncomfortable. "So was I," I said, "but somehow I'm the one being humiliated in my own house." She went quiet. That night, we went to bed without saying much more. She turned away from me. I stared at the ceiling, replaying Vanessa's words over and over in my head. 1 minute, man. It wasn't just an insult. It was a challenge. A seed of doubt planted deliberately. And the worst part? I couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa knew something I didn't. Over the next few days, things felt off. Elena was distant, quieter. She kept her phone face down. She stayed up later than usual, scrolling, texting, smiling faintly at the screen. I told myself I was overthinking. Until one afternoon, when I came home early from work. Elena was in the shower. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, buzzing nonstop. A message popped up. "Vanessa, so did he suspect anything?" My heart dropped. I stood there, staring at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to, because in that moment, I realized something terrible. That comment at dinner, it wasn't just a joke. It was a warning. And whatever Vanessa knew, whatever she was hinting at, I was about to find out. I didn't open the message. I couldn't. I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at Elena's phone as if it might explode. My heart was racing so hard I could feel it in my throat. Vanessa's words replayed in my mind. "So, did he suspect anything?" Anything. That single word felt heavier than a confession. I stepped back as if the phone had burned me and walked into the living room. forcing myself to breathe normally. The shower was still running. Steam curled under the bathroom door. Elena was humming softly, relaxed, carefree. That hurt more than the message itself. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, she froze the moment she saw my face. "What's wrong?" she asked. I studied her carefully. The woman I'd married. The woman I trusted. For a split second, I considered pretending I'd seen nothing. I could have asked gently, calmly, but Vanessa's voice echoed in my head again. "1 minute, man. Your phone was buzzing," I said. Her shoulders stiffened, just slightly, but enough. "Oh," she replied quickly. "Probably Vanessa." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I figured." She avoided my eyes as she walked into the bedroom. I followed her. She asked if I suspected anything. I continued. Elena stopped. The towel slipped a little, but she didn't notice. She turned to me, eyes wide. "You read my messages?" "No," I said firmly. I saw the notification, and that was enough. The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, she sighed and sat on the edge of the bed. "You're overreacting." That was the moment something inside me cracked. "Overreacting?" I repeated. "Your friend humiliates me in my own house, makes a comment about my performance as a man, then texts you asking if I suspect anything, and I'm overreacting?" She rubbed her temples. "Vanessa is dramatic. She exaggerates." "Then explain it," I said. "Explain what she meant." Elena looked up at me, her eyes glossy. She was talking about, insecurity. I frowned. Insecurity about what? She hesitated. Too long. I laughed bitterly. "You see? That pause right there? That tells me everything." "Elena," I said quietly, "has Vanessa ever been in our marriage?" Her head snapped up. "What? Has she ever interfered?" I asked. "Talked about me. About us. About our sex life." She stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. Answer me." Her lips trembled. "She says things. She jokes. Does she know things?" I pressed. She turned away. That was my answer. I spent that night on the couch. Sleep never came. My mind kept racing, replaying moments I'd ignored over the years. Vanessa's lingering looks, her subtle digs at me, the way she always seemed to know when Elena and I had argued. By morning, I'd made a decision. I was done being the quiet, polite husband. If Vanessa wanted to humiliate me, I would make sure the truth came out, with or without her permission. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I called Vanessa. She answered on the third ring. "Wow," she said mockingly. "Didn't think you had my number." "I saw your message," I said flatly. There was a pause, then a soft laugh. So you're going to tell me what you meant?" I replied. "Right now." She sighed theatrically. "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" I demanded. "That Elena talks to me about everything," Vanessa said. "Everything you don't." My jaw tightened. "You're crossing a line." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You crossed at the moment you married someone who was already lonely." That word hit me hard. "Lonely?" I repeated. "Yes," Vanessa continued. "A woman can be married and still feel alone, especially when her husband doesn't satisfy her." I felt sick. "You enjoy this," I said quietly. She laughed. "I enjoy honesty." "Have you been trying to break us up?" I asked. Another pause. Then she said, "I think Elena deserves someone who understands her." My blood ran cold. "And who would that be?" I asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Someone who lasts longer than a minute." The call ended. I stared at my phone, hands shaking. That night, I confronted Elena again. I told her everything Vanessa said. Every word. Elena broke down. She cried harder than I'd ever seen her cry. "She exaggerates," Elena sobbed. "She twists things." I was venting, just venting. "About what?" I asked. She couldn't look at me. "About feeling unwanted," she whispered. That hurt more than any insult. "I never cheated," she added quickly. "Never. But Vanessa, she feeds on negativity. She pushes." "Why didn't you stop her?" I asked. "Why didn't you shut her down?" "Because part of me believed her," Elena admitted. That confession felt like a knife. I stood up. "Then maybe you should listen to her," I said bitterly. I grabbed my keys and left. I didn't know where I was going, just away. As I sat in my car, my phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. "Vanessa, I warned you. Now ask her who she really confides in at night." My heart sank. because suddenly I wasn't just questioning insults anymore. I was questioning loyalty, and deep down, I feared the answer would destroy everything. I didn't reply to Vanessa's message. I couldn't trust myself to. Instead, I sat there in my car, staring through the windshield as the sky darkened. My hands rested on the steering wheel, knuckles white, heart pounding with a mix of anger, fear, and something worse, anticipation. Ask her who she really confides in at night. The words crawled under my skin. When I finally went home, the house felt different, quieter, heavier. Elena was sitting at the dining table, untouched dinner in front of her. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes red and swollen. "I was hoping you'd come back," she said softly. I didn't answer right away. I hung up my jacket, took a deep breath, and sat across from her. "Who do you talk to at night?" I asked. She flinched. "I already told you," she said. "Vanessa. Sometimes my sister. Sometimes no one." I leaned forward. "Elena, this is your last chance to be honest with me." Her fingers trembled as they gripped the edge of the table. "I'm being honest. Then explain why Vanessa thinks she has this much power over our marriage," I said. "Explain why she talks like she knows things I don't." Tears welled in her eyes again. "Because I made a mistake." My chest tightened. "What kind of mistake?" She stood up abruptly, pacing. I complained. I vented. I told her things I should have talked to you about instead. "About sex?" I asked. She nodded slowly. I swallowed hard. "And what did she say?" "She said I deserved more," Elena whispered. "That I'd settled. That you weren't enough." The words echoed painfully. "And you believed her?" I asked. Elena shook her head, crying harder now. "At first, no, but she kept saying it, over and over. Every time we argued. Every time you were tired. Every time life got stressful." I stood up too. "Did you ever tell her to stop?" "I tried," she said quickly, "but she never listens." I laughed bitterly. "No, she listens. She just enjoys the damage." That night, I barely slept. My mind kept circling one thought. Vanessa wasn't just a friend. She was an influence. And influences don't work alone. They embed themselves slowly, quietly, until they feel indispensable. The next morning, I made a choice. I wasn't going to confront Vanessa emotionally. I was going to outthink her. Over the next few days, I watched carefully. I listened. I paid attention to patterns I'd ignored before. When Elena smiled at her phone, when she looked uneasy after a call, when Vanessa's name came up in conversation. Then one afternoon, Elena slipped up. "She says you're manipulating me," Elena said casually while folding laundry. I froze. "She says that." Elena realized what she'd said too late. She didn't mean. "She talks about me a lot," I said quietly. Elena didn't deny it. That was all I needed. That evening, I did something Vanessa never expected. I invited her over. Elena stared at me in shock. "Why would you do that?" "Because I'm done hiding," I said. "And I want her to say these things to my face." Vanessa arrived with her usual confidence. Perfect hair, sharp smile, eyes scanning the room like she owned it. "Well," she said, sitting down, "this is unexpected." "I like honesty," I replied. "Don't you?" She smirked. "Depends who's asking." Elena excused herself to the kitchen, clearly overwhelmed. That left Vanessa and me alone. "I know what you've been doing," I said. Vanessa laughed softly. "You think you do? You've been undermining me," I continued. "Planting doubts. Making yourself the voice she trusts." She crossed her legs slowly. "I was helping a friend. By humiliating her husband?" I asked. She leaned forward. "If the truth humiliates you, that's not my fault. You enjoy control," I said. "You enjoy feeling superior." Her eyes flashed, but only for a moment. "Careful," she said. "You're starting to sound insecure." I smiled for the first time in days. "That's where you're wrong," I said calmly. "I'm finally clear." She tilted her head. "About what?" "About you." She laughed again. "You really think you scare me?" "No," I replied. "But I think you're scared." That got her attention. "Why would I be scared?" she asked. "Because people who insert themselves into marriages," I said slowly, "usually do it because they don't have one of their own." Her smile faded. "You don't want Elena happy," I continued. "You want her dependent on you." She stood abruptly. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, I do," I said. "And I think there's something you're not telling either of us." Her jaw tightened. This conversation is over. She grabbed her bag and stormed out. Elena came back into the room, confused. What did you say to her? Nothing she didn't need to hear, I replied. Later that night, Elena went to bed early. I stayed up, restless. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Unknown, you should have stayed quiet. Now you've made this worse. A second message followed. Unknown, ask Elena what she promised me. My stomach dropped, because suddenly, this wasn't just about insults or manipulation anymore. It was about a promise. And whatever Elena had promised Vanessa, it was big enough to turn her against me. I didn't sleep that night. The words from the unknown number echoed in my head over and over. Ask Elena what she promised me. I lay beside my wife, staring at the ceiling, listening to her slow breathing. For the first time since we'd been married, I felt like there was a stranger lying next to me. Not because she'd cheated, but because something invisible stood between us. A secret big enough to poison everything. By morning, I made up my mind. There would be no more guessing, no more half-truths. When Elena came into the kitchen, she looked exhausted. She poured herself coffee with shaking hands. We need to talk, I said. She nodded slowly. I know. I showed her my phone. The message. Her face drained of color. She texted you? Elena whispered. So, it was her, I said quietly. Elena sank into a chair, covering her face. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she took a deep breath. I promised her I wouldn't cut her off, she said. I frowned. That's it. No. Elena continued, her voice breaking. I promised her that no matter what happened between us, she'd always come first. The words felt unreal. You promised another woman priority over your husband? I asked. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. She said I'd need her when things fell apart. She said you'd never really change. Something clicked in my mind. Vanessa wasn't just feeding on negativity. She was betting on failure. How long? I asked. Since before the dinner, Elena admitted. Before the comment. She was already angry that I was trying to set boundaries. So she insulted me on purpose, I said, to provoke a reaction. Yes, Elena whispered. She wanted you to explode. She wanted proof that you were insecure and unstable. I laughed bitterly. Instead, she exposed herself. Elena looked up at me. I didn't realize how deep it went until you stood up to her. Until I saw how calm you were. That stung, but I understood. I was wrong, she said. Not about you. About her. Later that day, Vanessa showed up uninvited. She didn't knock. She walked in like she owned the place. Elena, she snapped. You didn't answer my calls. I stood between them. She doesn't need to, I said. Vanessa scoffed. This doesn't concern you. It concerns me more than anyone, I replied calmly. You made it that way. She laughed sharply. Oh, please. You're just embarrassed. No, I said. I'm done. That stopped her. What, she said. I know about the promise, I continued. I know you manipulated her into choosing you. Vanessa's eyes flicked to Elena. You told him? Elena stood up, her voice firm for the first time. I did, and it ends today. Vanessa's expression changed. Not anger, not arrogance, but panic. You can't do that, she said quickly. After everything I've done for you. What you've done to me, Elena corrected. Vanessa turned to me, her voice dripping with contempt. You think you won? You think this makes you a man? I smiled slightly. No. What makes me a man is knowing when to walk away from poison. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. She'll resent you. She already does. I didn't flinch. That's between us. Not you. For the first time, Vanessa had no comeback. She grabbed her bag and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence afterward felt clean. Honest. Healing didn't happen overnight. Elena and I had difficult conversations. Painful ones. We went to counseling. We learned how much damage outside voices can do when you invite them into private spaces. And as for that insult, the 1-minute man comment, it lost all power because I realized something important. Vanessa used shame as a weapon. Not because it was true, but because it was effective. She wanted control. She wanted relevance. And when she lost that, she lost everything. Months later, we heard through mutual friends that Vanessa had cut ties with nearly everyone. No one trusted her anymore. The mask had slipped. As for us, we rebuilt, slowly, honestly, stronger than before. Not because we were perfect, but because we learned to protect what mattered. The moral of the story is this: not every enemy comes loudly. Some come smiling. Some come pretending to help. And the moment you let outsiders define your worth or your relationship, you hand them power they don't deserve. Thank you for watching, and kindly like, subscribe, and turn on your notification for our next video updates.